In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Blood of Dawnwalker, which is a new open-world ARPG that's being developed by some of the people who made The Witcher 3. And you know, we've been starved for a really good vampire game for a while. I'm not saying there aren't any good vampire games out there, but it's been a while since there has been a decent one. And looking forward on the horizon, the only vampire game that I can think of besides this one is Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, which frankly could be good or could be bad from what we've seen so far. And I'm not like super hyped about that game, even though I definitely plan on playing it. So jumping into the Blood of Dawnwalker, let's first take a look at the studio behind the game. Though it might seem new, saying that they're an inexperienced group would be the most incorrect statement that you could probably make in your life, because these are some of the same people that also worked on The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077. Even the game director for The Witcher 3, Konrad Thomas Kiewicz, is in Rebel Wolf Studios now, and he's also working on this game. This should give you even more reason to be excited. And if you're familiar with their previous work, which of course you are if you watch this channel, then you know that most of their games are very story-driven, while still having fantastic gameplay, which is a hard combination to find these days. Now, Rebel Wolves is running their own studio the way they want it to be, and they're quite ambitious with their plans. They say they want to make games that will give you an experience that you will remember long after the ending credits have finished rolling. They also want to create games that will let you easily understand the gameplay while keeping it complex enough to let you experiment with different kinds of builds and playstyles. That way you can approach problems you encounter with a lot of options, almost like real life. And I think what we're seeing here in the gaming industry, as we see more and more of these splinter studios that are coming off major mainstream studios, is we're seeing sort of a transformation in the gaming industry. It is no secret that gamers in general are very unhappy with the way that modern game development has been going. It would seem that there is a segment of the development studios themselves that is unhappy with it, and they're trying to return to form and go back to a standard where games were actually really, really good. And I think that's what you're seeing here is another studio that's seeing this direction and is really trying to just put out a good game rather than focusing on sales numbers or other, issues. A cinematic trailer for The Blood of Dawnwalker was released just the other day, which shows us a glimpse of what the game's story is about, so let's jump into that now. So it starts with some guy named Cohen carrying what looks like a person in the dead of night with a village burning behind him, while some men with torches, who I guess are the ones responsible for the village being burnt, are looking for them. They run past a graveyard and what looks like an abandoned church before they're ultimately found by the soldiers, and we learn that Cohen's sister, named Lunka, is sick with something. We also learn that they're killing the people who are sick with the plague, and I guess burning the bodies to prevent the spread, which is actually pretty historically accurate. However, before a soldier can kill Cohen, his leg gets torn off by some sort of mist-like creature who turns out to be a vampire. And it's not just one vampire, but a lot of them. One of them even has what looks like a Mongolian soldier outfit on, who proceeds to go full Arkham Batman on some other soldier. One of the vampires uses a sword to fight off some soldier before producing fangs and mauling one, and then there's a female vampire who produces some appendages to kill a soldier and use telekinesis to turn another into a red puddle. After the fighting dies down, Cohen realizes that his sister isn't responding at all, either because the plague is finally taking its toll on her body or because she's been tossed around like a ragdoll. But one of the vampires, who kind of looks like Count Orlok from the movie Nosferatu, puts Cohen in a trance and takes her from Cohen's arms and apparently heals her with his blood. I am life, I am death, I am everything between is a very hard line to drop after slaughtering a group of people. The vampire then announces that things will be changing around there, which I guess is their way of announcing they'll be taking over. We then skip to a new scene with Cohen hanging onto a pole on a roof with silver eyes, which I guess hints at something vampiric. And what I noticed is that while Cohen's pupils here are silver instead of his original dark brown, the sclera are still white, while the vampires we saw have black ones. I'm not sure what this means, like, is he in the middle of turning into a vampire? Maybe his transformation isn't complete yet, I don't know. We see him drop down from a roof then, using his claws and slide down and slow down his fall, while unsuspecting guards walk below. The cinematic trailer then shows us some very short combat sequences where Cohen uses his claws to fight soldiers. He even teleports above a soldier and slashes down at him using his claws. The scene then shifts into daytime where Cohen is fighting some mechanical glowing thing using a sword before the trailer ends with the words, "Gameplay reveal summer 2025, which would imply to me that we will probably see this at Summer Games Fest. Honestly, this got me really hyped, especially after seeing the combat, and also since they're planning on revealing the game in just a few months, like 4 or 5 months probably. I think this game has probably been in development for some time if they're comfortable showing it to the public. So I don't think it's going to be too far away to see an actual launch for this game. Probably next year would be my guess, or maybe the spring of the year after. It's also possible that we can upgrade Cohen to have all sorts of abilities that he can do, and I think the scene where the vampires kill the soldiers is some sort of showcase where they're hinting at some kind of abilities you can use in the game. I hope it's not a Lies of P-type game where you need to choose your upgrades carefully, or else it'll affect Cohen's humanity or something like that. I just want to go hard with my vampiric abilities and go on a massive rampage with them. I think that would be a lot of fun. I also think there are a lot of choices in this game, more specifically with how you can choose to ally with either the humans or vampires. I mean, the vampires did heal his sister and save them from the soldiers. Then again, they sound like they're going to be jerks who will rule with an iron fist, so there's that. If Witcher 3 was anything to go by, I'm guessing there will be a lot of morally gray moments in this game where your choices aren't necessarily good or bad, or there are some good and bad in both choices, making them very, very tough decisions. We also have a video where the devs go into a bit more detail about the game and they reveal more info on the game's story and mechanics. It looks like they're saying that there will be a day and night system where the enemies you face in the day will be totally different from the ones you face at night. This is definitely something you would expect from Witcher developers or in a Witcher-type game, because this is exactly how that was as well. Cohen can also use vampiric abilities that aren't just for combat, but also for traversal as well. It also turns out that vampires we saw in the trailer are actually trying to take over the world, and Cohen will most probably be at odds with them and will try and stop them. We also learn that the vampire who looks like Count Orlok is actually named Brensis. The game is set in a village in 14th century Europe around the Carpathian Mountains near Romania, where the continent has seen it all. Plagues, war, famine, the whole lot. It seems that the vampires have been waiting for the perfect moment to emerge from the shadows and take over, killing the lords and taking over castles. Now, it's a bit confusing if this is a good thing or bad thing, because the lords were straight up assholes who would go on to kill entire villages just to curb the plague, and the vampires did help Cohen and his sister out, even going so far as to heal her, but the devs went on to drop a huge bomb saying that they're only doing so they can use humans to feed on them. Is this a freedom versus security thing? Probably not, but it looks like there are a lot of things to consider when making choices in this game. Rebel Wolves went on to mention that Cohen only has 30 days and 30 nights to save his family, which is actually pretty interesting. Does the time limit affect the gameplay in some way? Like, will time progression be an actual game mechanic like in Metaphor ReFantazio and the Persona series calendar system? Based on the interview, it seems like the time progresses after completing an important quest, which means that you have to be smart about what sort of quest you want to finish. This is definitely something that more and more developers have been straying away from, putting time limits on things, as a lot of players out there have complained that they don't like this sort of thing in their games, but it's very interesting to add this back into a game, adding a sense of tension to the decisions that you make beyond just those decisions themselves, and how it impacts the time frame in which you have to resolve this issue. Also, the devs clarified that the sandbox experience they were referring to would be a narrative sandbox experience where you can shape the story the way you want. They also mentioned blurring the lines between main quests and side quests, where every quest just builds up the story and shapes it based on what you do, which sounds absolutely fantastic. Having played a lot of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 right now, I can tell you they do that a lot in their game, and it is absolutely amazing. It also turns out that Cohen has argyria, which is a medical condition where there's a buildup of silver in your body, and it's a double-edged condition because it weakens him while also preventing him from fully transforming into a full-fledged vampire. I guess that answers the question on why he has vampire characteristics without looking like an actual vampire. I wonder if Cohen's medical condition also translates into the game's mechanics. Maybe he gets nerfed hard during the daytime, where he can't use his vampiric abilities while fully being able to do so at night. It also makes sense why you can see him use his claws at night, but he sticks to using a sword during the daytime. Another thing Rebel Wolves mentioned is that there will be different types of enemies, not just humans and vampires. There will be undead when you visit tombs, kobolds when you visit the mines, and Uriashes, I don't know what these are, when you go into the mountains. The game will also feature factions with their own motives and goals, and it would be best to get to know them before dealing with them. They also imply that some of these can ally with humans, while others will simply be a headache and waiting for Cohen. You will also reportedly encounter humans who side with the vampires and see them as sort of messiahs. So yeah, I think factions will probably be a pretty big part of this game and will impact how the story plays out. Earlier I mentioned that players will reportedly have the freedom to tackle the issues they face in their own way, like there will be an option to just storm a castle alone, balls out and whatnot, and the option to recruit a rebel cell and strategically attack some key points that could weaken Brensis' influence. I hope it's like Shadow of Mordor in that aspect, where you can choose to attack a keep with your own army and take out the leader of the place. And of course, since this is a vampire game, hunger management is a mechanic. The devs hinted that managing your hunger is very important because things can go south immediately if you start getting hungry. You might accidentally maul and feed on an important NPC just because you talk to them while you're hungry. It also looks like you'll need to manage your hunger in order to use your vampiric abilities as well, making it a little bit more complex. It was also mentioned that the main villain of the game won't just sit around twiddling his elongated thumbs while Cohen is actively trying to take him down. He might set up military checkpoints to hinder his progress, and it seems like he'll do things to react to what you're doing in the game to try and take him down, to make it more and more challenging to stop him. And he will also have other vampires that assist him that we did see in the trailer that might affect things in their own way. Final thoughts. I think this game isn't meant to have long playthroughs and will instead be replayed over and over so you can experiment with paths you take and the endings you get. The time progression mechanic and the multiple choices are just some evidence of that, but we don't know for sure yet. I do wonder how the game will be in terms of customization, as not a lot is known about that yet as well. And I'm not asking for like a character editor feature, but more if there's like skill points for skill trees, or maybe attribute distribution, something like that, where we can really see how you can put together a different build. We do know that there should be something like this in the game, but we really haven't heard anything about it. So I guess we'll have to wait until the summer to find out more information. It's also worth mentioning that this game is supposedly the first game in a saga of games, and depending obviously on the success of the game, it seems like they want to turn it into a series where you can explore more titles that explore the game's universe. So that wraps up our video on the Blood of Dawnwalker. What do you guys make of it so far? The game does very much look like The Witcher with its dark themes, and obviously the setting is very similar to The Witcher as well. Even the main character looks like a younger version of Geralt to some degree. At least I think so. But what do you make of it so far? Are you excited to have more action RPGs on the horizon with dark themes? Are you excited to find out that there are new studios forming that are kind of taking things into their own hands and deciding that the gaming industry is maybe not headed in the right direction as well, and they want to make better games too? Let me know in the comments below.